It starts like a jolt you don't see coming, a small question tossed into the air, and then a reply that lands with the weight of a decade. Word spreads through the palace corridors, across news desks, and into group chats. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, just delivered the most surgical line anyone's heard in recent royal memory. Asked whether she'd be stepping in for Meghan Markle after the Sussex exit, and with Prince Andrew's withdrawal still echoing, Sophie didn't flinch. She lifted the veil with one sentence. What did people think we were doing beforehand? In 8 understated words, she reset the narrative and reminded everyone that real service rarely needs a spotlight. Because while cameras chased every flashbulb moment around Meghan, Sophie was doing the unglamorous work that actually keeps an institution moving, supporting dozens of charitable organizations, turning up for women whose stories go unheard, spending time with people with disabilities, and representing the crown with the kind of calm competence you notice most when it's missing. The line was sharp, yes, but it was also honest. The work didn't begin when someone else stepped back. It was already happening, quietly, consistently, and without the need for applause. That quip didn't come out of nowhere. It surfaced in Katie Nichols' 2022 book, The New Royals, Queen Elizabeth's Legacy and the Future of the Crown, where Sophie is portrayed as the antithesis of flash, a traditional royal life, minimal drama, maximum output. Palace staff have a nickname for her that says it all, the Windsor secret weapon. She isn't a headline, she's a force. Sophie's story with the royal family began in June 1999 when she married Prince Edward, the Queen's youngest son. Unlike many royal brides, she didn't arrive as a socialite or a stage star. She came as a professional, a seasoned public relations executive who ran her own firm and planned to keep working. Then came 2001. A supposed business meeting turned out to be a sting, a journalist posing as a sheik, a candid moment, and a phrase about the late queen that detonated beyond the room. The fallout forced a choice. Sophie chose duty. She stepped back from her business, leaned into service, and built a track record defined not by grandstanding but by endurance. That pivot laid the groundwork for the relationship that would shape her public life. Sophie and Queen Elizabeth II shared a bond that went deeper than duty. In public addresses, Sophie called her Mama, not as a flourish, but with the warmth that comes from years of earned trust. If the late Queen modeled service as a discipline, Sophie mirrored it like muscle memory, showing up for the causes that don't trend, returning to the communities that need more than a photo op, and treating the royal role less like a platform and more like a promise. Together with Prince Edward, she's raised 2 children, Lady Louise Windsor and James, Earl of Wessex, and built a household that feels like a counterpoint to the modern royal cyclone. Stable, low drama, persistently useful. No breathless theatrics. No self-inflicted infernos. Just a family that understands the assignment and keeps going. Under King Charles III, the value of that steadiness is clearer than ever. Sophie's profile is rising, not because she reinvented herself, but because the moment finally caught up with what she already was. In recent YouGov polling, she ranks 7th among the most popular royals, behind names that usually dominate conversation. Queen Elizabeth, Prince William, yet she earns her place with the kind of goodwill that lasts. Popularity that's built on substance tends to stick. What does her now famous comeback actually represent? It's more than a clapback. It's a statement about invisible labor, about the emails sent after midnight, the hospital visits that don't make the rota, the quiet meetings where policy shifts and funding gets unlocked. Some royals chase celebrity and confuse attention for achievement. Sophie has spent years proving that the opposite is true. Achievement invites attention when it needs to, and carries on when it doesn't. Her engagements aren't just ceremonial ribbons, they're commitments to real people in real places. Women rebuilding after trauma, families navigating disability with grace and grit, organizations that live and die by whether someone in power shows up and keeps showing up. That's why her single sentence ricocheted so loudly. It exposed a blind spot. The public often imagines the monarchy as a theater of costumes and crowds, but the institution is also an engine room. Policy briefings, strategic planning, partnership building, long-haul projects that take years to bear fruit. Sophie has lived in that engine room. And every once in a while, when a microphone finds her, she reminds the world that the show isn't the work. The work is the work. It also hints at a shift inside the palace under the current reign, a recalibration away from spectacle and toward credibility. King Charles has long championed causes that sounded fringe decades ago and feel essential now: sustainability, youth opportunity, community resilience. Sophie slots naturally into that ethos. She's not trying to be the loudest voice, she's trying to be the most useful one. That matters for the monarchy because institutions don't survive on flair, they survive on function. And function depends on people who take the brief seriously. None of this erases the past or the mistakes that shaped it. If anything, 2001 sharpened her sense of responsibility. She learned the hard way how quickly perception can eclipse intent, and she responded not with a PR makeover, but with years of consistent service that made reinvention unnecessary. That's why her relationship with the late Queen resonates. It wasn't built on theatrics. It was built on trust earned over time. Zoom out, and her rise looks less like a sudden ascent and more like something inevitable. When the Sussexes stepped back in 2020 and Andrew withdrew, the spotlight drifted toward whoever would pick up the slack. But slack suggests a rope dropped on the ground. Sophie's point was simpler. The rope was never on the ground. Some hands never let go, oh yes, the line was savage. It was also fair. It called out a misconception without tearing anyone down. It defended work without demanding applause. It reminded the public, and perhaps a few colleagues, that consistency is its own kind of charisma. Is Sophie the unsung hero the royal family needs right now? If a hero is someone who shows up when the cameras don't, builds trust where the headlines can't, and keeps the institution anchored to its purpose, then the answer looks less like speculation and more like evidence. And if the future of the monarchy depends on rewarding substance over spectacle, then Sophie's trajectory isn't just a personal win.